This is Michael Woodward, and this is Season 3, Episode 235 of Jumblethink.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview amazing entrepreneurs about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's episode is Tamara Loehr. More about Tamara in a moment. Whether you're a new fan or a longtime listener, you can catch every episode of Jumblethink wherever you like to listen to podcasts. For Apple Podcasts or iTunes, simply head on over to jumblethink.com/iTunes. And for Spotify, jumblethink.com/Spotify. We have some incredible episodes with amazing guests and topics to help you turn those dreams and ideas into reality. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Hey there, welcome to Jumblethink. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have an incredible episode lined up for you today. Before we get rolling, we want to take a moment and thank our sponsors for today's episode, Penji and OpportunityInChina.com. Whether you want to learn or teach abroad, OpportunityInChina.com can help you find the perfect school to teach or learn at in Asia. Go check them out at OpportunityInChina.com. Our friends over at Penji can help you with unlimited graphic design for all of your needs at a low monthly subscription rate. No contracts, just month to month. Head on over to Penji.com, use the code JUMBLE, JUMBLE, to get 15% off your first month. Our guest on today's episode is Tamara Loehr. This is a super fun conversation. We talk about the world of entrepreneurship, and Tamara is an entrepreneur through and through. She's owned a digital marketing agency, investment property. She's invested in numerous other businesses. She recently released a new book called Balance is BS: How to Have a Work-Life Blend. If you know anything about Jumblethink, we are all about the holistic life and how business and personal and everything else impact each other. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about how to be an entrepreneur who cares and gives back and really values the people around you. It is a fun episode. So let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with Tamara Loehr. We are on with Tamara Loehr today, and she is in beautiful Australia, although overcast today from what I hear, and doing cool stuff. Tamara, thank you so much for being with us.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, I mentioned you're in Australia. You are from Australia. Your entrepreneurial journey started there. Tell us about that journey of entrepreneurship and how you found business as an option for a lifestyle.
Yeah, well, I think I've been an entrepreneur for as long as I can remember. To be honest, I think I've only been employed 1 year of my whole journey. But look, I'm a creative by nature. I love everything that's creative, drawing, songwriting, all that sort of stuff. And when I finished high school, it was quite interesting. I got good grades. So when I told my parents I was going to study art at uni, they were quite mortified. Wow. They said something like, art is a hobby, not a career. So I was looking forward to proving them wrong. So I studied at uni art and then went out and started my own agency about a year after graduating because the model of the agencies didn't really fit me. I'm a country girl. I found it all a little bit pompous. So I went out and really wanted to choose my own clients and help small businesses grow because that was my passion. So look, I started with a digital agency. I've had that for 20 years now, showing my age. But what was great was over the years, I've really found my tribe and they've really helped me draw bigger circles and figure out what I want to do in business. So you go through these stages where, first it's survival. Can I cover my own wage? And second is, in my 20s, it was all about, I want to have $1 million business and lots of staff and a corner office. And then you get to your 30s and, you're a bit worn out and you say, okay, well, there's got to be a better way to be smarter, work smarter rather than harder. And now, just having turned 40, it's all about, impact and how do I play a bigger game globally and, really make a difference in the world. So for me, that journey's kind of evolved, but it's all been around creativity and, challenging myself and being surrounded by like-minded people, which, is my tribe, basically, which is YPO and EO. So that's sort of been the thing, and, kids and all that stuff in between.
It is only understood by people who have gone down this road of entrepreneurship or business, running a business for that matter. Until you experience it, you don't realize how unglamorous it can be when you have to dive in and work hard. But you haven't just started one business. You truly define entrepreneur. You've helped other businesses thrive. You've taken and started other things. Tell us about some of the other businesses you've done through the last several years of your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so about 7 years I turned investor, and not your typical type of investor. I usually like to do the opposite, but I saw there was a real gap in the market for businesses who had a great idea, had created an MVP, so a minimum viable product, but they were really stuck. They couldn't get access to capital that they needed to get to the point that they needed to be at. And a lot of them were failing. I mean, 4 out of 5 businesses fail. And it's usually not because they don't have a great idea or a great product. It's usually because they're learning the mistakes and burning through the money, learning the same things that you and I did 10 years ago. And they really don't have access to mentors and all the things that I believe that businesses need at early stage, which isn't capital. It's strategy, it's marketing, it's infrastructure and operations and all the things that help drive it and make sure that the wheels don't fall off. So I decided, look, if investors are only throwing money at companies that turn over more than 10 mil, and there's these great businesses that are out there that are turning over 1 or 2, why don't I help get them to that 10 mil mark and beyond with my skill set, which is, online marketing and obviously growing businesses. So I become quite well known. I picked a couple of businesses that I took sweat equity in, which is basically trading your expertise for equity. And I did it performance-based. So if I didn't hit the milestones, I would give them their equity back. Wow. So really it was like a no-win, no equity. They had nothing to lose. And I thought that was an ethical way to do it rather than, these guys are struggling and then going in and taking a part of their business. So, we would set some pretty high milestones. And if I achieved them, then at that point, equity would be, crystallized. And I did that a couple of times and took a couple of businesses from under $500,000 to over 10 mil with 2 mil profit in less than 2 years.
Wow.
So, it does show that when you get the right mentors and partnerships and the right people together at different levels of their career and their expertise, that those things can complement each other and really create something magical. And of course, then we get to a point where we do need some capital. And at that point, I can tap into that global network that I've developed over 20 years for people who want to invest in those sorts of businesses. So for me, there's an abundance of those businesses that I could help, but I tend to keep it within my mandate, which is wellness, the wellness sector. And right now I'm working in the vegan, organic, cruelty-free area. And I do have some pretty strict conditions. One of them is that if I do go into business with you, that you must entrench giving into your business as a cost of goods. So I had a food company, and we would, when I took equity, it was doing a couple of thousand meals a week. By the time I grew it, we were doing 40,000 meals a week. Wow. But what was great about that was I made them entrench giving like a label or a tax or anything that's built into it. I made them entrench that from the start. So by the end, when I exited that business, we were feeding 40,000 kids in Africa in school. Like, that's pretty cool. So that's the stuff I get excited about, and that's probably why I'm still going, even though, as you say, you lose more than you win when it comes to business.
I love that concept of giving back, and it becomes more and more significant as we see millennials come up. That is part of their ethos of how is this affecting others. For you, why is giving back as a part of business a significant part of what you do as an ethos of what you build?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was talking about the stages. You get to a point where, you're comfortable in life. I'm certainly not the one who needs the Ferrari or anything. You get comfortable and you start thinking, well, what is the purpose of business? Why am I here? And for me, my tribe is Entrepreneurs Organisation and YPO, Young Presidents Organisation. And we really spend a lot of time talking about entrepreneurship and, the fact that we are in the top 1%. And we can really make an impact on the world, because we've come to the point where we all would agree that governments are certainly not going to fix the world's problems.
Yeah.
And you see it. You've got your billionaires who are doing amazing things to fix the world's problems, but they're few and far between, right? So we feel collectively, I mean, with YPO, the average turnover is 45 mil, and we turn over collectively 6 trillion in the US alone.
Wow.
So imagine that's we employ a lot of people. So we feel that, together we could really help fix some of these problems, both with our expertise, as well as our giving and entrenching that. So that's really something that we spend a lot of time talking about as a group. We see the importance that we can make by leading by example. And really, if every business just had a small, even if you're a coffee shop, even if you entrench giving a couple of cents for some clean water somewhere, we can all make a difference, rather than delegating this to people that we feel have been given too much time with not enough return.
I love that. That is a powerful, powerful philosophy. And I think that it's important for business to take more of that role of saying it's part of our responsibility to care for our communities, to care for the people around us. We shouldn't just depend on government to come in for the needs of others, but we could do something here too.
Look, they play a role, definitely, but I think we've got to be proactive rather than reactive. So, and it's going to take a tribe. It's going to take everybody, and including consumers. So that's part of the thing that we're trying to do, is educate people and say, look, it's great to buy your stuff on Amazon because it's cheap, or buy the China stuff, but supporting local businesses that are committed to giving back. If we just change our behaviour, that's a powerful thing. So one of my biggest projects at the moment is called the Dollar Beauty Tribe.
Okay.
And what we're doing is, the beauty industry alone is massive, as you can imagine. And women, obviously, the number one consumer. They're 99% of, the purchasing power when it comes to the beauty and wellness sector. So if we were to just shift our behaviour and start selecting businesses that aren't multinationals that test on animals, if we were to shift our behaviour to buying independent, so small business brands that are usually 9 times out of 10 have way better products, because they're investing in quality ingredients and really putting their heart and soul into it. And those businesses are committed to being cruelty-free and are committed to giving back, then the purchasing power of women alone can change the world. Just within the beauty sector, it's quite powerful. I mean, we could get up to, our goal is to do 10 million impacts a year.
Wow.
And that's just, women are buying beauty anyway. That's a simple way that the consumers can change their behaviour and shift towards, supporting those sorts of brands. And so that business, the Dollar Beauty Tribe, is all about showcasing those female founded, because that's another thing that I like to talk on a lot, and hence the book. Is all around, how do we support fellow females so that we can move this terrible statistics of the fact that, in YPO, there's under 10% of members are women, and the fact that, 2% of all women get access to capital. There's some shocking stats that we need to shift. So to me, I think we don't wait for boards to change their way of doing things, or the multinationals. We just do it ourselves.
As we move towards the end of this first segment, we always ask, how are you finding purpose in what you do? And hearing you talk, it sounds like you are purpose-driven, that you are very focused about being intentional with the decisions you make. So how are you finding purpose in the various things you engage with?
It's pretty infectious. I mean, I've got two young girls, and I think it's really powerful for them to see you as a role model. But when you go to these places and see the impact that you're making, it's pretty easy to be inspired. That certainly fills my bucket. And I also feel that you attract the right sort of people as well. I mean, you spend more time at work than you do at home. Well, I do anyway. I'm obsessed with work. I love it. So if I'm going to spend a lot of my time at work, what sort of people do I want to be working with, and what do we want to be working on? And when you do stand for purpose and profit, then you attract some pretty unique, beautiful people that probably you wouldn't have attracted before because, up until then they might have been chasing the better paycheck or the corner office. But some people will take a pay cut and will be willing to, get their hands dirty so they can be part of something bigger. And, that's a great example. That's a great reason to get out of bed every morning. And it's also wonderful to show your children. I mean, my kids just had school holidays, Easter school holidays, and they were knocking on the doors and selling their little origamis that they made. And they came back and I said, oh, what are you going to spend it on? And they said, oh, no, we're giving it to charity.
Wow.
Because one of the kids in our group, their uncle has got cancer. So we've $60 they raised for pieces of paper. So they are watching, they're listening, and I think that's really great. You talk about millennials, but we need to show them the way to do it through business, as well as through purchasing power.
So good. What is one challenge you're currently working to overcome in your business?
For me, I think in my business, I guess, in my tribe, the thing that I struggle with the most is leading with values and blending.
Okay. Yeah.
And the fact that a lot of people see that as a weakness. So, for instance, I believe in having meetings where we can do it on the beach with our families, or flexible hours. And there's a lot of old school people that find the way that I do business, a little unprofessional, which is interesting. So hence why I'm writing the book. I really feel that we need to have a conversation about a better way. I think there's far too many women being burnt out, and men, and we need to find a better way. So for me, that's concerning. That's something I struggle with every day, is seeing people, the rise in heart attacks, the rise in burnout, this guilt treatment of women. And I really feel for them, and I don't think it's sustainable. So for me, that's probably my number one challenge, is trying to have as many conversations as I can, like this one, to make sure that, these great people don't burn out. And these great people aren't, these women aren't getting to a bigger size in their business and being bullied and, deciding to quit. So there's still a lot of bad behaviour at the top end of town, and it's causing a lot of good people to give up, and that breaks my heart. So we need to, get together and lead in numbers. Otherwise, they'll continue to win.
For you, what's the next big goal you have? You are very successful in the things that you've done, but it seems like you're almost in a pivot time. So what is that next big goal?
The old hockey stick during circles. I tell you, I've bitten off a big one here. Look, for me, I would like to get to a point. My mission is 10 million impacts a year.
Wow.
And, I'm a marketer. So who would have thought that someone who was a creative could actually have a big impact on the world? So for me, I'm really driving awareness so that people change their purchasing behavior. And I want to get to that 10 million impacts and see what that does. We've seen how big Amazon has grown, and that's based. That's not a tribe. That's based on purchasing power. But imagine if we were to shift that purchasing power to something ethical. So for me, 10 million impacts is huge. That's selling 10,000 products a day. But look, the products that we're coming across and that we're supporting are 10 times better than anything else out there in the market. So I'm really about disrupting what people are doing And in the beauty industry, we're actually giving women full-size products to try out front with no money down, a bit like Dollar Shave Club, but we're doing it in beauty. And I'm nervous about that because, some people could take advantage of it. They're getting $100 worth of product up front. But look, I really hope that the movement takes off and people do the right thing. They do pay for the product if they know it works, which I'm confident they will. So for me, no one's doing that in the beauty sector, and it's exciting. But then at the same time, I'm putting a lot on the line, and I'm asking my business partners and the brands that are in Dollar Beauty Tribe to really have some faith in consumers and bring the trust back. So, look, let's see if it pays off. But I'm driven by this 10 million. I won't stop until I make that sort of impact. And hopefully then, wouldn't it be great is when our kids get older and they go and buy something and they say, giving is entrenched in this, right? Like buy one, give one is entrenched. And if someone says no, they go, what? Wouldn't it be great if the norm is that everything just has it built into it, like a tax or insurance or, a nutrition label? So that gets me excited. I think I would have achieved it if it gets to the point where consumers don't think that that's the norm.
We will be right back with Tamara Loehr to talk more about her book, which is awesome, and a lot more about balance and work and life. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be right back. Are you ready to turn your dreams and ideas into reality? If you are, you need to be at Jumble Think's Idea Camps this October. What is an idea camp? Idea camps are part networking event to connect you with other dreamers and idea makers just like you, part training to give you the tools you need to move past the idea, and part mastermind to work through your idea and create the roadmap to reality. If you've been struggling and not sure what steps to take to move past the idea, you need to be at idea camps. How can you find out about idea camps? Well, head on over to jumblethink.com/ideacamps. That's jumblethink.com/ideacamps. And you'll find some more information there. You can even sign up at our lowest prices ever for idea camps. Well, we can't wait to see you this fall and to help you make your dreams and ideas a reality. So head on over, check out the event, and register for idea camps. We also want to thank our sponsors for today's episode, Penji and opportunityinchina.com. Here's a little bit more about Penji. Penji helps startups, agencies, and marketing teams achieve more with unlimited graphic design support at one flat monthly rate. Their easy-to-use online platform pairs you with a professional designer and lets you create as many design projects as you want. Think of it as your monthly subscription to top-notch design. No contracts, no hourly billing, just fast, simple, and affordable graphic design for all of your needs. Simply use the code JUMBLE, JUMBLE, to get 15% off your first month of Penji. We also want to thank our friends over at opportunityinchina.com. Have you been looking for a way to change your career or social prospects? Do you see the world around you changing and haven't quite figured out what path you should take? You are not alone in seeking opportunity. Visit opportunityinchina.com for access to scholarships to attend university in China. Or, if you have a bachelor's degree already, opportunityinchina.com provides access to jobs in the educational sector all across China. Now, working in China is not only often well paid, but it will place you among 1/5 of the world's population, boosting your social network, bringing you more deeply into the story of globalization, and opening up doors you never knew existed. Seize your opportunity now. Visit their website for more information at opporunityinchina.com. Now let's return to our conversation with today's guest, Tamara Loehr. We are back with Tamara. All right, before we get going, there are people listening. They're resonating with what you're saying, and they're definitely going to resonate with what you're saying next. They need to find and connect with you. What are the best ways?
Well, on my social is probably the best. Okay. So it's called Loehr Blend, so LOEHR BLEND. And we've actually got a social media group, our Facebook in particular, where we're supporting each other. So it's not about just reading the book and then, putting it down and not taking action. My business and transformational coach of 8 years has offered her time to help women and men transform into a blending. So jump on and join the conversation.
I am not exactly your target for the book, although I love the topic. I love the sections that I've checked out so far. The book is called Balance is BS, How to Have a Work-Life Blend. That is something very dear to me. We segment our lives, especially in Western world. Can we have balance between life and work and between other segments of our life?
Well, it's fundamentally flawed, the balance in your life. I mean, I'll call you on the fact that it's probably not targeted at you, because I think every person should have a values-based compass that they make daily decisions on. So that exercise in itself is really great. But look, getting back to this balance thing, when we look at a set of scales, we have work and we have family on the other side, right? And we're trying to take from one to the other to balance it out. So if we're working too much, we go, oh gosh, we better spend more time with the family and take time out for that. So, and where is self in all of this? And if you aren't in good mental and physical health, then you're useless to both sides of those scales. Yeah. So I find that whole concept doesn't work. So what I tend to do is look at it as work or business, self and family, and how do we bring those three together? And the best way to describe that is whenever you're feeling torn between anything, how do we look at ways to bring those together rather than always having to compromise or feel like we're taking from one to the other in order to get this mythical balance. And at the end of the day, I've asked so many people, how are you going with that work-life balance? And they've never been able to say that they've hand on heart been able to achieve it, other than a few people that I know inside my tribe who have demanded and done the blending exercise. So I felt it was important for us to have this conversation, because now 40% of households in America the female is the breadwinner, which is fantastic. It's 50% in Australia. It's a wonderful thing, but we're burning out at a ridiculous rate because we're trying to be wife of the year, boss of the year, mother of the year, friend of the year, and it is bloody exhausting.
I want to clarify something here. I kicked it off by saying it wasn't exactly targeted towards me, and I took that assumption out of the fact that you have a workbook for rising women. But I know that these principles definitely do carry over for guys too. So tell us a little bit about that and how different people are going to get different things out of the book.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, my husband's a stay-at-home daddy, and it was interesting when he's at the school ground how many men would actually say to him, I would have loved to have done that.
Wow.
So, I think for the first instance, reading this with your partner and, establishing each other's values and what you want out of life, what are the core things that drive you, what are your non-negotiables, what are your passions, what are your values, and then coming up with the model, because I believe women really love returning to work and probably haven't even asked their husbands if they want to stay at home and looked at what that might look like. So, look, I think for men, there's a lot of men who, would like to spend more time at home with their kids and quality time. And some are achieving that, but we could certainly get better at it. And that starts with us giving men permission to do so in the workforce. So I think there's a lot there for men who are parents to get out of it. I think for people, women and men who are upcoming and thinking about having families that don't, the book is still relevant for you. If anything, there's less to unwind. You can have a workbook of how to set things up so that you have a great blended life for when you do have kids and family, because as you know, the older you get, the more complicated life seems to get. So for people who are single or unmarried, it's still very much a great book for establishing what your values are. And you tend to find and define those as you get older. So what a great tool if you're younger and you can nail that in your 20s and start making decisions based on that compass, because we've all looked back at our 20s and gone, oh, my God, that was a terrible decision. So, look, I think there's something in it for everybody. And look, I really believe that it's a concept that, you don't know what you don't know. And if you read the book and you have a better concept and a better way of doing things, then that becomes mindful and entrenched as something that you work forward. And every situation that approaches you, you're going to look at it differently with a different filter. And that's the intention of the book.
For me, one of the things I'm taking away from what you're saying here that I think is so powerful is that a lot of us set up expectations for perfection. I've got to be the perfect dad. I've got to be the perfect boss. I've got to be the perfect employee. If you're an employee, I've got to be the perfect citizen of my community. I've got to be perfect at everything. And yet we don't set up what that picture should look like. We just are aiming for something we haven't even defined. And it sounds like your book does that. It helps people walk through discussions that they need to have as families, as individuals, things that they need to process through, and really work through painting the picture so that you can begin to build a strategy to make that a reality.
Look, I'm a woman and I'm really great at overcomplicating things, but it's not really that complicated.
Okay.
When you think about all these things, so work, it's a job description and you've got KPIs. And then at home, you want this, sort of life and house and car or whatever it is. There's all these things, but they're all just distractions and details. I call them the details. Underneath that, and the thing that constantly unpins whether that workplace is the right place for you, or that business partner is the right business partner for you, or if that husband is the right husband, or that partner is the right partner, all comes down to your values. So you need to start with that as a base. And if you go back and have a look in your life, if you do a timeline of all the things that didn't work for you, without going into the detail of, why it didn't work because, they didn't value me at work and I didn't get that pay rise. If you go back to the values of that person that ran that business or that partner that you had that didn't work out, you will find, hand on heart, 100% of the time that your values weren't aligned.
Wow.
If you looked at their values and because life changes and people are too busy looking at the details and then making decisions based on that rather than looking at the values. So my husband and I have exactly the same values. How we come across is completely different. I want to run businesses. I want to travel. I want to do all these crazy things, and he values things. Well, his values are the same. We both believe in family, but at his point in life, he really wanted to spend time raising the kids and doing a great job at that, which is actually more important than what I'm doing, by the way. But underneath it, our values are very similar. So my value sets are things like impact, obviously, from the first session.
Yeah.
Creativity. I love being creative. So being an entrepreneur is a great space for that. Freedom is a big one, and the same with my husband. So we don't like businesses where, we can never own a restaurant and be locked into that because that doesn't give us the freedom. An office doesn't give me freedom, a 9-to-5 sort of job with lots of staff that I need to manage. So hence why all my team have flexible hours and can work from home. So if you look at what your values are, you make decisions based on that. So when someone comes to me and says, I have a business I'd like you to invest in, and it's a bricks and mortar business with staff, this many staff and all that sort of stuff, I go, no, that's not for me because I know what my values are. Now, me and my husband have evolved over the years. Now, he's an entrepreneur. And he wasn't when I met him. But it doesn't mean that our love for each other has changed because our values are the same. And you can evolve in a business and you can evolve with business partners if your values are the same. So if we start with that and we start with that conversation, how much more powerful would that be? So I don't tend to interview people and say, what is your credentials? How do you fit this job description? Yes, it's great to have experience, but you can teach anyone anything. If they've got the same aligned values and we're on the same path and we think the same, then there's never going to be a huge problem and a breakup because we're going to be able to work through things and come back to what's important to us. And everything else is just details that we can work on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And I want to go one step further. You were talking about values quite a bit. And you talk about how things play out look differently. Your husband wasn't an entrepreneur, but now in this next season he is, and he wanted to value more time at home, but the values as a family, as a couple, were unified. Do those values change and evolve, or are you finding that the values themselves are pretty set once they're set, in that what you find significant now for the values will be what you probably find significant 10 years from now or 15 years from now?
Well, it's interesting because my transformational coach is the one who does the exercises in the book.
Okay.
So you go through this exercise of defining what your values are, because they're actually entrenched in you. They only rarely change if there's been a huge life impacting event. And I'm not talking about just losing a job or something. It's usually something quite large.
Wow.
So your values 99% of the time stay the same. The issue is people don't know how to identify them. So my transformational coach has gone through the work of putting them into exercises so you can establish what they are. And a lot of people that she does this with, including couples, they'll find that their values are not the same, and then that's the cause of a lot of the problems. And sometimes that means that you need to break up with that business partner, or you need to leave that job, or you need to leave that partner. But it's better to understand what your values are and start making the right decisions moving forward based on that. So yes, it is. It's a hard process to go through to define them, but once you know what they are, you can actually go back and look on your life and go, okay, I can see how this didn't align and this didn't align, because you usually have the same values for life, which is fantastic, right? Because it makes it so much easier. That's my compass. So whenever I'm really, the voices in my head and I'm changing my mind every 5 seconds about something, I wake up and I go, I've made a decision. The next morning I wake up and I go, no, I've changed my mind. I always go back to, okay, you're looking at the details. What are my values? Are they aligned to this project or to this person? And then I get my clear answer. And it's that ability to be able to say no more than you say yes that will really help you fulfill in your life. So they're the foundations. We call it like the pylons of your infrastructure. And once you have those, then you can start talking about, okay, what do I want my life to look like? When I'm most content, what is my pie? What part of my pie am I doing in each area of my life? So what is my business or my work? How much time does that take up of my pie? And my family and myself. And you define your pie. And what's really great is once you know that, whenever you're feeling, burnt out or a little bit lost, which happens to all of us because we get into bad behaviors or we let all these other expectations and obligations creep into our life, then we can go back to our pie and go, okay, well, hang on. This is, say, for my work example, why am I so unhappy at work at the moment? Because this has happened to me. Why do I not enjoy what I'm doing at work? And I went to my pie and I went, well, it's 50% of my pie that I dedicate in my life to work because I love it so much. So, and inside that, the things that I value are creativity, freedom, which impact. And what had happened in this business, it had gotten so big, one of the businesses that I'd invested in, that I was spending most of my time, it had gotten so big that all I was doing was managing people stuck in the office from 9 till 6. And I was doing board reports and, tracking and numbers, which is, as a creative, you would know, it is not what we enjoy.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And then I went, oh my gosh, how much time am I spending on creative things at work? And it was like 10%.
Wow.
And I went, oh, okay, this is why I'm unhappy. So the next day I went and I said, this business, I should have got off the bus stop a while ago because this is not serving me and what my values are and what my pie needs to look like for when I'm happiest. So I need to sell. I need to get out. And a lot of people said, you're mad, it's probably going to double in size. You're probably going to make a lot more money out of this. And I said, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to compromise myself. So I hope that's an example of how you can use these simple tools just to go, hang on, how do I get back to me and what's important? And we all know that when we're most content and we're really in our good space, that's when all the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
That's when our business thrive, our relationships thrive. We've got great friends. We wake up with energy. We don't end up in a heap going, oh my God, I'm exhausted. those are the things that are really important, and you get better outcomes. So it's important that we spend time on ourselves as a plan and as a strategy like we do in our businesses.
So it sounds like what you're saying there is that the values become the measuring stick for everything else you do.
Absolutely. It's the compass for whenever you overcomplicate things.
Absolutely. Your book starts and ends with two critical words, balance and blend. You use blend and blending quite a bit. What is the difference between balance versus blend, and how can just changing that little philosophy of how you approach life impact the bigger picture?
Yeah, so blending is all about bringing the things together that you value. So this isn't about trying to be everywhere and, doing the cupcakes and being wife of the year and all those sorts of things, mum of the year. This is once you have defined what you value most and what things are important to you in life, then those become your core focus. And then you look at how do you bring those together. So a good example would be that the other day there was a pitch that we had at work that we'd all been working on that I was really excited about. I wanted to be on the call, but then my daughter had her tennis final, and I wanted to be there as well. Now, a balanced person would probably do two things. They would, either stay at work and miss the finals and be really heartbroken and then try and overcompensate when they get home.
Yeah.
Or they would quickly rush through the presentation, so they wouldn't be quite present, and they would say sorry 100 times, run out the door, speed in traffic, turn up to the tennis flustered, and catch the tail end of it. So both of those sound like a recipe for disaster.
It's not gonna end up well, for sure.
Well, and I don't think you're showing up in both places as well as you could be.
Yeah.
Because you're compromising and you're not present. So for me, I'm all about being open and transparent. So I rang them and I said, look, I really want to be on this call. I'd love to be at the pitch, but I am not missing my daughter's final. Notice I didn't apologise.
Yeah.
Didn't say sorry, because I am not apologising for putting my family first as a priority. So then I said to them, so with your permission, I would love to dial in. What that would mean is you're going to hear some rackets in the background, some tennis ponging and some kids running around and all that sort of stuff. I'll mute myself, but I'd really love to be part of that conversation with your permission. And what was great is they said, oh, look, absolutely, that sounds wonderful. So instead of rushing around like a mad woman, I went in, spoke to the team, got them ready for the pitch, empowered them to lead with it, because at the end of the day, it's about grooming more people to do what you do and not taking control. And then I was there to pick up my child from school, talk about the tennis final on the way to tennis in the car, all very leisurely. Get there, watch her game, have the phone call while she was in between matches. And afterwards, what was really great is one of the people that we were pitching to said, how did your daughter go? And I said, she actually won, which is great. And then I gave them permission. I said to them, so, look, next time something comes up for you, please do the same, because, I would love to see you do the same with your 10-year-old, because you have a 10-year-old as well. So just granting each other permission and then blending those things. So another example is I only go to the office 1 to 2 days a week. I live at the beach, and I don't believe in keeping work and business and personal life separate. A lot of people say that you should keep them separate, which I think is just showing how ethical you are, really. So I have an open door policy. So on the weekends, some of them will drive an hour to come and see me on the weekend. They can stay over, and our kids will play on the beach, and we'll go for walks and do great things. And we'll talk about business on the beach while they're having a surf, or a little bit over dinner after they've gone to bed. And we just blend all of it together. And that's my employees, my business partners, my suppliers. And it's just a great way to bring the three together. And at the same time, we're exercising. So I'm actually doing self, business, and family at the same time. So that's the thing you get really good at, is how do I blend all three together so I don't have to miss out on any of these things.
So good. My daughter has made a couple appearances on the podcast by accident, by running into my office to say, Dad, I need this. And It's always fun to have those interruptions because we only get our kids for so long.
Yeah, look, and I invite you to blend and say, hey, I need to do a blend right now. My daughter would like to share something with me, and just take that minute to acknowledge them, to say thank you for that, because we all know what's going on anyway.
Yeah.
There's that great video of where that baby came in, that went viral. Baby, yeah. And then, the wife come in and ducked down and tried to, scurry the child out. What about if she just came in, grabbed the child, went over to the husband and let him give her a kiss and then left?
Yeah, so good. I love that. As we wrap up this segment right here, you talked about impacting 10 million people. I find it interesting that your career in digital marketing, I think it builds a place that you can build off and do that from the things you've learned, the things you've experienced, that it sets you up for success. Talk to us for a second about how we can look at our past to build better futures.
Look, I feel very blessed to be able to have looked under the hood of so many businesses being in the digital world. And I think social media is such a great channel for us to have this conversation around impact and changing by consumer behavior. But one thing that I talk about in the book, which is really interesting if you are stuck in a career that you're unhappy with, usually careers don't evolve around how you evolve in your life. So going from career-driven to having a family, for instance. So a lot of people don't want to have to start again. They feel like they're going to have to start again. But what you've got to remember is that you actually have accumulated this amazing toolbox along the way that you can take to any job site. So even though I had a digital agency, the tools that I had worked up over the years, having done so many strategies and grown so many other businesses, meant that I could take that toolbox and then go and say, hey, I'm going to be an investor. And I'm going to start taking equity in companies and helping them grow. So, an accountant, for instance, or at a lawyer who has to, trade time and in 6-minute increments, which means they're stuck to the office, which is never great. An accountant doesn't mean that he has to be an accountant for the rest of his life, and the next evolution is for him to start his own accounting firm. It could be that he takes those accounting skills and he goes and applies those to something that he's passionate about. So I've seen quite a few people who are lawyers or accountants that have actually ended up joining some great non-for-profits or taken equity in businesses that are so driven by numbers. So there's lots of ways that you can evolve, and it's all based on where you are at. And I call it redesigning your life. I basically redesign my life every 7 to 10 years, and I make sure that my toolbox that I take to the next place, that business needs to match what I'm trying to achieve in my life right now and what's driving me. So doing the Dollar Beauty Tribe, for instance, I'm taking all the tools that I've created over the last 20 years and I'm taking it to the beauty industry. And I don't have a beauty background at all. I've certainly never, gone to any of those Cosmoproфs and things like that until the last couple of years. But I'm taking those tools to an industry and trying to do things differently because I feel that's where women can make the most impact. So just take a moment to think about the tools that you have, and we work you through those exercises in the book. And the second thing to think about is, look, if you've got to the point where you're the breadwinner, you've obviously got your stripes and you're obviously an expert. So you've got to start valuing your time. And there's 2 ways to value your time. The old way is, valuing it with money and time. But I would like you to start thinking about what value do you bring to the business. Yeah. And that shouldn't be based on hourly rate or the amount of time that you put into the office. I know that me spending 1 to 2 days in the office a week is enough value that everyone else that's there who might be, in and out of the office 3 or 4 times a week, they don't question that because we're at different levels and I bring different levels of value. But I offer them mentoring to get to the same point. So it's really important you value your time. This book is dedicated to breadwinners. It's not people who have just left uni and are trying to get, their experience in the world. This is really about how do you evolve yourself so that you can start demanding more from everything that is around you that supports the life that you want to lead. So value versus value. So know your value is one of the things that we really talk about in the book, because if you lead with that, you're going to free yourself of all sorts of expectations that you think you have or behaviors that you've had in business in the past.
Love that. We will be right back for rapid fire questions. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Opportunity in China and Penji. Here is more from opportunityinchina.com.
At the dawn of the 19th century, forward-thinking people moved to the commercial centers of Europe. Moving into the 20th century, America welcomed millions into the land of freedom and opportunity. It is now the 21st century. Many of the successes and fortunes of our generations will be made in China. To learn how you can seize opportunity in China, follow the Opportunity in China podcast. The Opportunity in China podcast is available anywhere podcasts are streamed, or you can visit our website at opportunityinchina.com.
We also want to thank our friends over at Penji for sponsoring today's episode. What does Penji do? Well, let's say you need some graphic design done every month. Maybe you need some business cards designed or pamphlets or flyers, your presentation. You may even need some logos or social media posts. What you do is you head on over, you sign up. Once you sign up, you get access to this panel where you post the projects you need them to design. We've been using them for a while. We'll shoot them over a project we want designed, maybe a social media post for Jumblethink or the logo for Idea Camps. And shortly after, we get some incredible designs back. Now we shoot conversations back and forth and we refine these until the designs are perfect. If you need that for your business and you want unlimited graphic design projects every month at a low monthly subscription, you need Penji. We love them. I think you will love them too. So head on over to penji.com, use the code JUMBLE, JUMBLE, to get 15% off your first month. Go do it right now. I think you're going to love it. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions with Tamara Loehr. We are back with Tamara Loehr, and we're going to do rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An artist.
What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Start with execution. Ideas everywhere.
What's one big lie about entrepreneurship you'd like to break?
It's not sexy. It's hard work, but it's worth it.
What is one change you'd like to see in the world?
Impact, buy one, give one, entrenched in everything that we buy.
What do you want your legacy to be?
That I helped women lift the percentages on the number of women running businesses, because we're bloody good at it.
Where do you find inspiration?
From nature, from human beings and humanity, and from my tribe.
What is one book you think every dreamer or entrepreneur should read?
Ooh, Crucial Conversations. It's all about communication.
How do you define success?
Success, I'd say how you don't define it. You are not a success in business if you fail at home.
Wow, that's powerful. That is really powerful. What is one trend you are currently excited about?
I would say it is consumers taking back their right and being able to choose how they impact the world.
What is one habit you find helpful in your life as an entrepreneur?
Journaling and refusing to acknowledge that there's internet on planes.
What is one thing you wish you would have known when you started out?
That my creativity is not fluffy. It's a power and it's magic, and it's certainly not a weakness. So if you've got a secret power, lead with it and try not to be like everyone else. Do the opposite, basically.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
I think I would probably have lots of babies. I started late, and I do like having babies.
And our final rapid fire question is, what is one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
Oh, that's a good one. Look, I'm really living the life that I want to lead. So for me, I think it would be to tick off everything on my bucket list and know that I led my family through a safe, happy, content life.
And as we wrap up, what is one last thought you'd like to leave us with?
One last thought. Actually, I'm going to tell you some coaching that I got just a couple of days ago.
Okay.
When you write a book, you're putting yourself out there, right? And there's going to be haters. And my mentor said to me, why are you worried about what 99% of people think of you when you're in a 1% of people?
Wow.
Come and chat to me and let's raise this conversation again when someone is a hater who's in the 1%. But I guarantee you that there won't be any, because they're like-minded.
Wow. That's really good advice. Tamara,
it's raw.
What's that?
It's raw.
Yeah.
It's just a recent conversation, so I thought I'd share it. It's a nice way of looking at things, right?
I appreciate that. Tamara, thank you so much for taking time out. I love what you're doing with the book and the message you're sharing, and we'll be pulling and rooting for you that you impact those 10 million that your dream is pushing you towards.
Thank you. Well, we're all going to be part of it, so join the conversation and, let's have some fun on the way. It's about the journey, right?
That's right. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Once again, we want to thank today's guest, Tamara Loehr, for taking time out and being on the show. Make sure to connect with her and check out the book. It is really, really good. We also want to give you an update on an upcoming event we are a part of. You should be a part of it too. It's called Podcast Row. If you're a fan of this podcast or a fan of podcasts in general and you are an entrepreneur, this is an event for you. You will get on a couple great podcast shows. It's called Podcast Row. You can check it out, podcast-row.com. You will be interviewed right there with people like James Alcatcher, our friend Jeremy Ryan Slate, and myself, and some other incredible podcasters too. You don't want to miss this event, so go apply right now. It is capped, so you need to get your application out right now. Podcast-row.com. I have a lot of great events I'm going to be at, some virtual, some in person, like Podcast Row. If you want to check out where I'm going to be, or even book me for your next event to speak, or even do a live interview, head on over to jumblethink.com. You'll find links to our speaking page, to our upcoming events page, and more. I would love to connect with you further, and one of the best ways to do that is to sign up for our newsletter just on over at jumblethink.com. You can also find links to our social media channels like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. We'd like to be friends with you and do this journey of chasing big ideas and dreams together. So head on over to jumblethink.com. You'll find all of those links, including links to Podcast Row, some other events, and while you're there, make sure you sign up for our newsletter. As we wrap up today's episode, I wanted to give you a couple of my final thoughts. It was incredible to have Tamara on the show, and I have to agree with the premise of her book, Balance is BS, How to Have a Work-Life Blend. So often we are segmenting our lives. We're putting on different caps for different parts. This is my family time. This is my time in the community. This is my time at work. This is my time running my business. Whatever it is, those different caps that you have, and we see them as segments of our life. We can't operate fully to our complete potential if we're constantly living in a place where we are segmenting our lives. Our family life will impact our business life. Our business life will impact our family. Our communities of faith will impact what we believe and how we think. All of our life is intertwined, and the more we realize that we can see the big picture better of what our life looks like when we combined everything, the more we'll be able to fully be who we are. Now, I'm not saying don't be professional, but what I am saying is maybe it's time for you to start thinking about the whole picture and not just part of the picture. This blend that Tamara's talking about is so powerful. So today, think about how you are living. What parts of your life are you segmenting? What parts are you keeping from other parts? And how can you bring them together? The more we have the full picture of our life, the more we have this blend, the more we will live and thrive in the community and in the family and in the workplace. So today, how can you begin to move closer to the blend and less from the segment? As dreamers and idea makers, this is even more important for you. You need to embrace these different segments so that you can really step into the fullness of the dream and idea. So today, take a few minutes, take some time to think about who you are, think about where those segments are, and begin to remove the barriers between the different parts of your life. When you live this blended life, as Tamara says, I believe you will see the fullness of your potential. Now it's your turn. I challenge you. Get out there, dream big, chase those dreams, and change the world around you.
Étirez-vous doucement, mais complètement. En avant, en arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.